started.
Sounds great. Thank you. Thank you, Chloe. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be chatting with all of you today. I studied at FIT, so I'm been in New York for many years and worked in the industry there for many years, and happy to connect with all of you. So I'm going to share my screen and make sure you can all see. Is that good? Everyone good? You can see my screen?
All good from my side, Britta.
Okay, great. So a little bit about myself. Again, my name is Britta Cabanos, and I'm based now in Portland, Oregon, and I moved here after many years of working in the New York City garment industry. Little introduction of myself. I did go to North Dakota State University. I'm actually from a pretty small town, and I knew if I wanted to get into fashion, which was my dream, I needed to either get to New York or LA. And so I ended up attending FIT and studying fashion design. And then I stayed there for many years and worked in the market. And I ended up mostly focusing on activewear and swimwear. And I did both designer and mass market. So it was a really great experience to have, huge volume of product that we were cranking out, as well as the designer side of product too. So it was fun to get a good taste of both. And later on, I relocated to Portland. I did get relocated for a specific job, and that was to work with Janssen, who at the time was very iconic, and they had swimwear licenses for many labels, including Tommy Hilfiger and Nike. And so I ended up doing Nike Swim, which was just such a great experience. I got to work with the athletes and, be involved in a lot of projects, a lot of special projects, a lot of innovation development. So I got a good taste and experience working on more of a technical side of design. And after doing that for some years, I wanted a little more flexibility. So I decided to start consulting and ended up co-founding with my partner a design consulting studio called Creative Capital Design, which still exists today. And that started in 2012. So it's over 10 years old now. And it's pretty interesting. We worked with small to medium-sized companies, mostly in the athletic space. And there is a website that has some good information on it. So if you want to learn more about that, it's Creative Capital Design. And I can put links to contact information in the chat or send it later. And now, most currently, I'm the founder and editor, as Chloe mentioned, for Inside Fashion Design. This was really a passion project of mine, was to do a lot of writing and sharing of stories within the industry. And I found that after working in the industry for so many years, I had students and younger designers that kept coming to me and kept coming to us through the design consulting studio, asking all these questions like, I want to start a line, I want to do this, how do I get connected to this person so I can get a job here, those kind of things. So that led me to want to share information and kind of share stories and even job industry roles, in different aspects of the industry. And so Inside Fashion Design has become that platform. So I encourage you to check that out. Let me keep moving on here. So Creative Capital Design is the studio. Here are some of the brands that we've worked on through Creative Capital. And as you'll see, I'm sure you recognize some of these, that they're mostly in the athletic space. And so this is some of my earlier work, and I'm showing this to just set an example or show an example of back when I started designing many years ago. There were no computers, everything was by hand. And so all of our portfolio work was done with markers and pens and cutting and pasting and whatnot. So I did launch a swimwear line of my own in 2000, and I did do that for a couple of years. So this was one of the earlier sketches. And actually, this wasn't even in my portfolio. This was something I had done after working in the industry for a few years. So here again is just a fun example of my early work, you can tell this was done by marker. It's all done by hand. So that is how we did our portfolios in the ancient times. And this I got a kick out of as well, because I was trying to show basics. And if you notice the words that are on little white strips, those were literally done on a computer, then printed out, and I cut them out with an X-Acto knife and glued them on so I could have a neat, writing description of each of the styles. So portfolios have come a long way since then. And one of the swimsuits that I did design for my own brand ended up in Victoria's Secret. And this was the centerfold picture of that one suit that they ordered. So that was kind of a big highlight of my own brand. And to show you just a little bit of my Nike swim background, here's a couple of images. This I'm including to share with you how you can show concepting of a design. So here we're working on Nike Triathlon program, which was brand new at the time. So we were iterating and concepting for women's suits and men's suits, what they'd need in the water, what they need running, what they need biking. And so kind of just ideating through hand sketches, which is great as part of the process to show. And so I'm sharing this with you to kind of encourage you to include some of these rough sketches that you may have, and they may not be perfect, and you may not think, you're the best hand illustrator, which is totally okay. The point of this is to show your process and show your thinking, your design thinking, and how you're kind of working through details and construction and shapes and that kind of thing. This was some of the Olympic product that I got to work on. So some of the athletes we worked with. And then swim volleyball was another one. So obviously Nike has several athletic categories. And so being involved in some of these gave me a nice taste of different styles for different needs, depending on what sport they were, what it was made for. And the last slide here about myself is the Inside Fashion Design, which Chloe mentioned. I'm now the producer and editor of that. I encourage you to check that out because that's our website. We also have Inside Fashion Design Connect, and we're sharing a lot there for designers, things like design templates, croquis, some free trend information, and we're just trying to use that as a platform to come together and share resources. So when you have a moment, check that out. And any questions so far? I'm going to jump. I have next an example of what we showed for a client. So Chloe, should I just dive right into that or pause for any questions?
Yeah, let's just give it a moment, see if anybody has any questions about your background, maybe a little bit more about Inside Fashion Design or Creative Capital. Okay, 3, 2, 1. All right, I think we'll move on. This next deck is going to be really interesting, I think, for all of you guys. I'll let Britta explain it more, but yeah, I'm excited.
Okay, good. Well, please, use the chat or ask questions. I really want this to be valuable to you, and I love to connect with students. So don't be shy. Please, raise your hand or chat however you want to reach out. I'm sure at the end we can do some time for questions as well. So I'm going to show you a deck that we did with Creative Capital Design. So this was specifically for a client, not from my portfolio, but when showing you this could be applied to a job interview or a specific company or maybe a specific brand or market that you may be wanting to build your portfolio geared towards that. So this is pretty in-depth. It's 26 pages. It started off as I think it was 36 pages. So I've cut some back to not overwhelm you. But I wanted to share this with you because I think there's a lot of things in here you can pull out and apply to your own work. So I will start off with the cover page. So this was specifically for Zumba apparel, which this is about 10 years ago. I think it was, I forget what season, but this is quite old. And Zumba is based in Miami, and I'm sure you're familiar with the Zumba. It's, the fitness dance workout, and it's very upbeat, very high energy, very fun, very expressive. So when we were presenting and preparing this to present to the Zumba company, we wanted to start things off and kick things off with this really high energy vibe. So what I was thinking here is this could be a very simple page that you could add into your portfolio that we call it a word cloud. It could be about you personally, or it could be specific to the company that you may be interviewing for. So if it's for you personally, what's your personality? What, are you more outdoorsy? Are you more quiet? Are you more high energy? Because it just kind of starts to convey a message about who you are or who the brand is for. So it's a very simple way to kind of add in a little extra. It starts conveying like the energy, or what's the word I'm looking for? Like the vibe. So then we're going into brand storytelling. So when we're presenting this to Zumba, we want them to know that we fully understand their consumer, their brand. And when we're coming up with design concepts for them, we want to tell a story. So good design tells a narrative that the consumer feels emotionally connected to. So here's a place too, where you could think about your consumer, and how are they going to connect to your brand? These are very simple pages that you could add in if you just need a little more depth to your book. And again, you don't need to have 26 pages on one on one market, but just conveying to, say, the interviewer that you're understanding who their consumer is and how you're going to tell the story through product. So for the Zumba consumer specifically, it's very instructor based. And if you're familiar with them at all as a brand, their apparel is super bright. It's fun and loud and loose fitting because they move so much. So what they were wanting to do was expand their product range. So we built a consumer construct, which we call the house. So this is the house that we were building for Zumba. So you have your instructor who's wearing certain apparel. And then you have your studio, which is the attendees of the class, and they're wearing their workout gear. And then they wanted to expand into lifestyle. So this is pretty broad, and don't get the wrong idea that you have to have something like this for what you're showing, but it's just something to think about. If you're focusing on evening wear, maybe kind of considering, okay, if my gal is super glam and glitz, where is she wearing this to? Is it just for one occasion? Is it different occasions? Or if you're thinking about, okay, she wants something she can dress up quick after work, where does that fall into her lifestyle? And just kind of thinking through those aspects of your target consumer's life and how she's going to utilize your designs. So here's just a one pager, one customer. This I pulled out, it's the Zumba instructor. So say you're just focusing on one, who is she? What is her lifestyle? What's her pain points? Like what is she missing? What does she need that you could potentially solve that problem for her? So I think just showing that you have thought about these things is a really great way to add some more to your portfolio and to show that you've really thought through all of these questions and all of the different aspects of the entire design process. So then we get into design direction. So this is showing you what we were presenting to Zumba at that time. So our seasonal story was digital energy. And we just fell in love with this. This is a dancer. Obviously, Zumba's around dance. So we were thinking about motion and movement and digital energy. So the image that you see, this gray one right here, this is actually computer generated a picture. It was the dancer as he's moving through space, and then they followed him and used some computer magic, and it created these amazing lines, all of this linear motion. So we turned that into our seasonal story, and that became the theme throughout the entire presentation. So just some call outs of words are helpful to include if you're doing something like this, like an inspiration page. Putting a little bit of copy on the page is helpful, and then you can also talk through it. You know, we're saying movement creates pattern, fiber optics, because that's what it looks like in this colored picture. That's kind of giving that vibe of fiber optics. Color has an edge and a purpose. And then we were franchising a Zumba pattern. So the idea behind that was, could we come up with one print or one pattern that you can carry through the entire collection? You know, maybe it's just for a trim or the inside of a lining, or for the overall body of the style. So having a signature print was what we were proposing. And that'd be, you know, something you could think about too, is what details can you include throughout every style that gives that little signature of you, of your brand, of your design. So then we broke it down into different categories. The first one being print trend. So we took that idea of the motion, the digital motion, and fiber optics, and that's what's going to inspire our prints for the season. So they're contours and body mapping, linear and laser. And the bottom here, the words on the bottom, embossed and debossed. So that's with fabric, obviously, but we were including it as a print. It's kind of like a no print, and just showing that we're also thinking about how you can apply this to materials. So again, like thinking through the details and how you're going to apply all of these different inspirations throughout your collection. Color direction for them, very bright. We were just calling out, you know, color on color, super saturated, grays with modern hop brights, electric pastels. So here's really just giving the mood and the direction of the color before we dive deeper into the color stories. Graphic trend direction we also included, and we have some inspiration here. We were talking about strapping details, adjustability in straps, because they're wearing, you know, sports bras and tank tops that maybe need some adjusting as they move. How could we apply those to make it pop and make it look graphic, and just kind of signature things that you could put throughout the styles. Next, we get into material trends. And here you can see we were talking about extreme scale, a lot of meshes going on, some sheerness, very urban vibe, positive, negative looks. So again, we're just talking about all of these different things that are included in the collection and how we're going to approach each of those. So again, I don't want to give the impression that you need to include all these things, but these are things that you could, maybe you combine these into 2 pages or even 1 page to show that you've thought about, have you thought about graphic? Have you thought about print? Have you thought about color? And how all of those are going to build into the story of your collection. So then we move on to silhouette trend, and the Zumba gal is very urban, and she's often running from, you know, the Starbucks to her Zumba class, and then she's running out for lunch after or whatever. So we really wanted to express that we understood that as well. So there were lifestyle pieces. She's throwing a hoodie over her bra so she can just run into class, take off her jacket, and be ready to go. And then the color palette. So here we had 4 color stories, but that's because we were presenting 4 different deliveries. So you're probably going to be showing one. So again, you know, you can have one color palette, you can show the inspiration boards for just that one. This is just an example of how we were presenting it for a year-long collection. We'd have a drop for spring, a drop for summer, a drop for fall, a drop for winter. And, you know, that's one of the things that's, I'm sure you're seeing is changing, is they're not doing so much seasonal now because things are more focused on sustainability and more classic and core styles that last longer. So keeping that in mind, but this is back in 2014. So we had four drops throughout the year that we were planning. And then going deeper into specifics about each color story. So again, you may have one, you know, 1 or 2. There's our, so this was, and we were calling it P2, P3. We didn't have seasons defined yet. So P3 and P4. So those are the inspiration boards for those 4 specific colorways. Then we get into development. One thing as someone who interviews, or through our clients when we meet with people, or we're even interviewing for contract work or a student, we really like to see the design process. So this doesn't mean you have to know tech design and sewing, construction, and all of those things, but to show that you've thought through those things and that you do have an understanding of those things, I think is really important. So talking about the quick sketches again, like I showed you in the beginning, this was a concept page. We were doing quick sketches. We knew we needed some bras. We needed some t-shirts. The pants are all funky and loose fit. So we sit down, this was done with our team, right? So we're all sitting down and kind of doing these sketches and just sharing a page out of our sketchbook. So I think even if you don't love your, you know, hand sketching skills, I think it's still okay, because it's what you're thinking about. It's not showing you have amazing hand sketching skills. It's showing how you're thinking through the process. So for example, up in the left-hand corner here, we're really thinking about the construction of the bra, because that's, you know, it was super important. We want to make sure we had adjustability. So we're sketching little, you know, rings and sliders. Where does the mesh go for breathability? But then the other sketches were like, oh, okay, you could wear that bra with this tank top over it. That would be a really nice merchandise that works together. And then maybe she's wearing it with these pants. Zumba does their own shoes. So we were kind of looking at some of their shoes, you know, what would they wear it with? So this gives a really good impression, I think, of your thinking, your brain. You know, what is your design thoughts when you're thinking about that design that you're working on? And then after we had worked through the process and we looked at construction and narrowed down the styles, we started showing how this could merchandise together as a capsule. So this was the delivery of the green color story, right? And so how is the bra colorway going to coordinate with the tank top and the pants? Which pants can go with what, or which jackets can go with what? So you could maybe take a little snippet of something like this, depending on what your product is, and show how you could work it together to merchandise together, that you've thought about mixing and matching or layering, or, you know, if a consumer is going to buy something, what pieces would they buy that they could really build a little capsule around, or that they can accessorize with, just to show again that you've thought about this and how you've thought about the whole collection together. How does it work together? Here was the blue color story. And then this is an example of a visual line plan. So this is something we do a lot of. Mostly the merchandisers will be doing this, but as designers, you're going to be providing the sketches that go to the merchandiser that's going to be plugging them in, Or if you're in a small company, you might be doing this yourself. So here's, again, maybe an area where you could show in your portfolio that you've thought through, okay, if this is going to production, realistically, how many colorways are we going to do? How many different bra tops are we going to do? You know, you're probably not going to do that many. So out of all the concepting you've done, what are your core pieces and how can you show those? And we did some fun things like, you know, you can make up a name for your style. This was the Zumbra. We put in pricing. This was actually calculating pricing, which, you know, is not needed for what you're doing, but showing some sort of thinking again about your thoughts on going to production. You know, is it couture and you're making bespoke, or are you applying for a job at a, you know, sportswear company where they do multiple deliveries and multiple styles? And so I think demonstrating that you've thought through that as well is a really nice thing to include. Then they know that you're thinking beyond just your, you know, your ideas and your quick design. You're really thinking through the entire process from your concept to production. Pants page. So here's a more detailed of the bra that we had the hand sketches, and then we turned that into an Illustrator sketch. This was leading up to a tech pack. So we're providing simple information. We did letter callouts here, main body fabric, contrast fabric, fold over elastic, bra elastic. So this isn't a tech pack, but it's being passed to a tech designer. So again, have you thought about the actual construction? What kind of stitching is it? What kind of trims do you need? Which fabric goes where? And this was going into the tech pack. So it was the start of the tech pack, but it's not the full thing. We were providing, you know, where's the trim come from? How much is it? That kind of thing. And that is the entire deck. So I hope that wasn't overwhelming and I hope you have questions. But what I really wanted to convey most was that if you can even take little snippets of some of this and add that to your portfolio, if you need to, you know, build up a little bit more, maybe there's pages like this that you can add in without you having to, you know, draw a whole other collection or draw a whole other set of dresses. You know, it doesn't have to be all just the sketches and the illustrations and that kind of thing. You can really highlight that you've thought about the process from the materials to the trims to the construction to your inspiration. Have you shared with them where you got your inspiration from? How are you going to tell the story? Who your ideal customer is? And things like that, I think just are good things to add and include in your portfolio. So I think did I go too fast? Is there any questions? I was going to check my notes here.
Britta, it looks like we've got a quick question actually out from the chat. So Sam says, what is the best way to tell a brand story? Or how, I guess maybe to rephrase a little bit, hopefully it's not taking too much liberty. How do you go about telling a brand story?
Yeah, that's a great question. And one thing I wanted to mention is sometimes you start with fabric, right? Like you say you're working and you have, you know, your team and you decide you're going to use 100% wool or 100% organic, and they pass it to you and they say, okay, here, go design. So the material could lead to your story. So for example, we did some work with Icebreaker, which is New Zealand specific wool. So there's such an amazing story behind that. So you could research, you know, the organic cotton farmer, the sheep herder, you know, go back to the origin. And if it's not from something real, make it up, make up your person, make up your story. If you're outdoorsy, you know, maybe you only want organic cotton and wool, and that's all you want to use. So create a story around that. Maybe you go back as far backwards as to the farmer. There's Peruvian cotton. Maybe you go back to the farmer in Peru, tell that story, and you can kind of make a path. That's the farmer. The fabric went to here. It's dyed naturally. You could show examples of plants that they dyed the fabric with, and then it's shipped to wherever. And you're using that to build for this person who only wants, all these natural products. They want to support maybe an ethical maker. And then how you as a designer take that into developing and designing product. So I think you can, even if it's made up, if you can demonstrate that you're creating a story, and it could be even much more in depth. I don't know, maybe it's a rock band you're designing for. Who's the rock band? What's their history? Did they start playing guitar at 12 years old and now they're this mega star and they have lots of money to spend? So you're making, sustainable leather with studs on it or something. And just kind of, it's including the background, including the backstory before you get to the product, even before you get to the consumer. Like, where is it coming from? What's it for? And then how is that consumer using it? So does that answer your question?
Okay. Sam says yes, thank you.
Okay.
We have another question. Hold on, I got to scroll up here from Diana. So she says, is it necessary to create a personalized portfolio for each company you're applying for, or is it better to showcase all of your talents?
Yeah. Sorry, I had notes to kind of highlight on some of those things, but I just talked right through it. So I would say if it's okay to show a variety of work. You're a student, right? So you probably did multiple projects within different markets. Maybe you did some children's and some women's or something. I think it's okay to highlight your student work and explain, these are projects I did in school. But if you had the time, hopefully you would know in advance enough that you could create a specific capsule for that company that you're interviewing for. Even if it's, say it's in 2 days and you just have to do it really quickly, do the research, pull out some inspiration, maybe get some fabrics together so that you can have something that's geared towards them. I think it's really important to just make sure you're studying the brand and their aesthetic, and you want to make sure you're showing them that you understand the aesthetic and that you can design into that aesthetic. I know it's maybe not always possible if something comes up quick, and I think that's okay too, but highlight your best work first, and maybe highlight what your favorites are. I would say you don't want to go in with shoes and men's and kids and evening wear. That would be way too broad, and it would be confusing as to what you want to do. So if you can convey your aesthetic and how you would match for their aesthetic and show them your best work, I think that would be great.
All right, Diana says thanks.
Thanks.
I do have a question for you, actually, Britta, if you don't mind.
Okay. Yeah.
So like when you're creating something like that Zumba proposal, what are the aspects of that deck that you find that you're spending the most time on? And why do you think that those are like important things to spend time on?
Probably the most time is, well, I'm going to say two things. It's the research, consumer, because you're doing market research, consumer research, and then maybe materials research. Like, you're doing a lot of research up in the front. You want to make sure you understand the market, you understand the consumer. So doing a lot of Google searching, a lot of reading, taking notes, and then starting to do maybe fabric research, what's going to align with their brand. And I think for us, maybe as a more experienced designer, once you have that in place, then you just start concepting. So I feel like that, it's slow to put everything in Illustrator. I understand, like, doing tech packs and the stitching and all those details, that's time consuming. But once you get there, the specific styles that you're working on. So it's the upfront. And I would say that's, even if you had only one page to show, if you can express that you've done the research and show them that you understand the market, you understand that consumer, that's going to give you a huge, just elevate that one page that you have, because they'll know that you've done your homework. So I would say doing the homework first and really, really understanding who that person is, and what you're designing into. Because if you get that wrong, then, no matter what you design, it probably isn't going to fit.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, thank you.
I have a question. During the designs, did you ever have blockage or didn't think of anything, or like just having any blocks that you can overcome?
Like creative blocks? Did you say blocks?
Yes. Yeah, like blockages in your head. They can't think of like new designs or what to design.
My partner would joke about this because I have too many ideas. Like, I always want to do 50 things and we only need 2. So I'm one of those that's just like, what about this? What about this? So for me, the hard part is editing. If you did have a creative block, my advice would be just keep sketching. Oh, there's a little trick. I don't know if you guys ever would have done this in school, but you set a timer for yourself. And we actually even used to do them on sticky notes. We would just take these small little, you can't see it on my small little sticky notes, and give yourself a minute, and you crank out as many designs as you can on this tiny sticky and put it on the wall. And it forces you to just move your hand. You're not overthinking it, because I think that's where sometimes we get stuck, is you're overthinking. And, you're redrawing and redrawing and redrawing, and then you're just not sure of the construction, or you don't know how that pocket will work, or do I want that pocket on there? I don't know. So it's very easy to overanalyze and get stuck. So you could try that tool of just forcing yourself, set a timer for 30 seconds or a minute, and do as many as you can on a little sticky note. And just see if that kind of gets your creative juices flowing. Or, just keep Googling, that gets overwhelming too. All the social media and posts and Pinterest, and I get overwhelmed with that too. So it does become very, overload easily. You could ask for feedback also. Like, if you have what you want to make a jacket, but you're just not sure the direction to go, do you want it, raglan, or you want it this or that, bring in some buddies and just maybe brainstorm together. We would do a lot of brainstorming sessions, and everyone would work as a team. Again, we'd put sticky sketches up all over the wall and start pulling, and maybe you're combining styles from one idea to the other idea, you're merging them together. So, those would be some suggestions, hopefully helpful.
Yeah, it was. Thank you.
Okay.
Do we have any other questions? I love that sticky note idea. That is so fun. I want to do that right after this.
Yeah. And it just forces you to put something down. Like, you have to put something down, even if it's just a scribble. Like, it just makes your hand move. So, and as you guys, if you have more questions, I'm looking through my notes to see if anything like I missed. Oh, branding. I know branding is a big thing these days. You have your personal brand, you have your professional brand, or the brand for a company you're working for. So I think having a personal brand is super important. Of course, social media, but maybe on LinkedIn is a great way to start getting that out there. And, you know, think about your own brand, your colors, your logos, you know, how do you want to appear in the industry? I think if employers are starting to look at hiring you, they're going to Google search you. I know, you know, that it's, you know, normal these days. But making sure that you have something out there, or at least, you know, you're working on it, but you have kind of a certain message. So think about that message. If you don't have it yet, that's fine. You can start to define that. And, you know, if you want to go into swimwear, you can kind of, you know, start leaning towards that's what you want to do. Maybe highlight some of your swim designs. Online portfolios, I know, are another thing that we're always, you know, everything's digital now. So I'm sure you're working on online portfolios, making sure that the platform you're using is clean and easy. And again, if you only have 4 pages on there, that's okay. You don't have to have categories and all these different things. You can just have your best work and start to have that. I don't want to say that you need to have only one aesthetic, but you want people to understand who you are by what you're sharing. They want to get a sense of, it's like telling the story again. Are you an outdoor person? Or are you, you know, heavy metal person or whatever? So starting to think about that. And branding as far as logos and hang tags and trims in designs that you're working on or for collection. Another thing I would suggest is you could include in your portfolio maybe like a close-up sketch of your label, your font. Are you heat transferring that on inside your t-shirts, or is it a recycled woven label, you know, with embroidery on it? If you can show a little bit of that as well, if you have a page of evening wear sketches, you know, do you have a signature piece of hardware that you're using on the straps? Doing a zoom in close up, you know, sketch or, you know, example of something like that would be another great thing to include that shows you've also thought about that. So that was one of the notes that I had to mention.
Britta, I have a question.
Yeah.
You had mentioned that, mentioned the word, you know, digital portfolio. In your opinion, do you think that physical portfolios are becoming irrelevant now with, you know, day and age, or should we cater to both or have like a physical and a digital? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I'm old school. And like I said, I did everything by hand. I still like to touch and feel and have that experience. To me, a printed hard copy portfolio gives you that experience more than digital. However, when we're interviewing someone or looking at candidates, you have to have a digital portfolio. So my suggestion would be both. So maybe it's just one presentation that you bring of 4 pages that's evening wear, and they can be done in Illustrator and printed. I'm not saying it has to be hand and done by hand, but if you can have some actual trims or some actual swatches, actual color swatches on a page, like that just comes across to me personally like so much more exciting and an experience, and I can touch and feel and see those in person. And I'm always like, oh, that feels so great. It's so beautiful. And the computer just doesn't express that as much, right? You just don't get the same experience. And I certainly don't think it's required by most companies that are hiring these days. But I think if you went in with, or maybe it's just 4 pages of swatches and you can show this page goes with this, or these color swatches go with this. This is what they look like in real life. I think that, again, if I was interviewing that person, you would definitely get bonus points for that.
Thank you. Yeah, I completely agree. I'm also like very old school. I like to have the physical on hand, but also we have to be able to cater to, the new age, digital new age. So,
Yep.
yeah, thanks.
Yeah, yep. I had in my notes also that I wanted to make sure, like you don't, I know you're probably focused on you're studying fashion design and you want to be a designer, not a tech developer, or you don't want to be maybe you want to be a merchandiser, not a designer. So you don't need to have in your portfolio all these tech sketches and all of these, other, like the visual line plan, maybe. The main point is to share that you understand the process and that you understand construction. So you've thought about the materials, you thought about the stitching. And so just conveying the message that you get that, but you don't have to go in with, a bunch of tech sketches on top of maybe a couple that go along with your style for construction, but you don't need to show a tech pack, or you show maybe an example of one page of a tech pack, and don't get stressed out that, oh, I don't have that, or I don't know how to do that. I think that's okay. It's just really demonstrating that you have that understanding. So I wanted to emphasize that, and just breezing through to see if there's, yeah, I think that's kind of some of the main points. Can I answer? Here's one. When applying to FIT. So this is Ronke. I'm getting a message. Is it okay if I ask your question? Getting a message for the destination. Yes, please. Okay. So they're asking if they want to use like the Louvre Museum or a ballet theater. I feel like it's so common to use a place like New York City. If you're just talking theoretically, I'm not sure if I get the question exactly, but I think what I'm getting is using a location like that as inspiration. 18th century Royal Palace of Brussels. Yes, it's probably common to use New York City as a city, because that's our city. Oh, for mood boards. Okay, gotcha. Absolutely 100%. It doesn't even have to be a known. You could pick a tiny museum in the middle of nowhere that you found or made up, and it inspired you. It created the direction for your collection. And that just spurred a little memory in my head. For the Nike Olympic, it was 2008 Olympics. They had traveled to New York City, and I'm sure the story is much deeper than this, but this is what I knew of, is they found a tattoo parlor in Brooklyn. So the tattooist, who was the main, I don't know if he's the owner or the main artist there, they loved his work so much, they brought him out to Portland. They did a whole presentation on his tattoo art to 600 people. It was the big design session. Here's this guy from Brooklyn, all tatted up, goes on stage in front of 600 people, and he's just showing his work. They brought him in as inspiration, and all of the categories used that as their creative direction for that year. So when I showed you this is from that. That's what the story was behind some of this artwork. So taking something like that and turning it into a mood board and, inspiration, absolutely 100%. It could be a book, it could be music, an album cover, but yeah, it could be from history. Use a historical Marie Antoinette if you want. I would say just whatever is inspiring you, go for it, for sure.
Britta, you had briefly mentioned looking at like candidate portfolios, and I was just curious, and I think this might benefit a lot of us in this room. When you're looking at candidate portfolios, is there anything that you see often that you find puts you off by any chance? Like something that maybe our listeners, our attendees could maybe avoid, or maybe something not even that puts you off, but just something that you find unnecessary that you see often?
Yeah. And that just reminded me too, I started making a PDF that I'd like to pass to you. I'll send it to Chloe and she can send it off to you. I had some do's and don'ts in there. I guess I really don't see these too much, but I would say if it's just too cluttered, if it's messy and there's so much in there that I just can't figure out what they're trying to convey, then right away, that's a big turnoff. If there's too much on the board or it's just all over the place, right away, it's just, like it's difficult to read and it's not clear what their message is. So having a clear message and, you can have multiple things on a board. It just needs to be cohesive and understandable. And the other thing would be, maybe if they're just so all over the place, like they have shoes and then they have kids and then they have, like handbags and all these different things, it would be, okay, well, they're not clear on what they want to do. So how do we know that they're going to be a good fit for us? It's a good thing to have a variety of skills and to show that you can sketch a bag or design a bag and a dress. But if you showed up for an interview for, say, specifically for us for activewear and you started showing, evening dresses, I'd be like, okay, that doesn't relate at all. So that would be a big red flag. I would rather see less with higher quality than to see more of things just thrown together. So.
And maybe things with cohesion versus less things with cohesion versus more things without, right?
Yeah. And you had passed me these 2 portfolios. I have those here. You want me to open those up?
Yeah, maybe if we could just pick one, because I know that we're actually surprisingly like really closing in on time.
Yeah.
But if we want to pick one, maybe just to go over really quickly.
Okay. So this was one as an example. I think it's a great cover page. The color story is really nice, reads really well, and it tells you what it is, a sustainably sourced collection. Like here already, I mean, it's good to have the text, but something with the color, I don't know, I found it hard to read. So am I going to read through all of this when I'm viewing this portfolio? So I would say I like the images. It's cool to have some funky colors, but this is a lot of information. I'd rather see this maybe on a clean market consumer page. So it's just easier. Maybe it's more bullet pointed, so you can just quickly breeze through this. Think about the person that's interviewing you is probably very busy, short on time. They're probably not going to want to read through too much. So maybe just cleaning this up, making it bullet points, somehow an easier flow to understand what's going on here. Inspiration page. I think this is, I'm going to move this up a little bit. I think, yeah, I kind of had I think my first kind of reaction was, again, I don't know if it's the color or maybe it's the screen. It was a little abrupt. I'm not sure what the right word is. It kind of struck me a little bit. Whoa, like, and here, so this page, I definitely had some thoughts on. This is great that they're showing. There's some hand sketches here, which are really cute. Totally ties in with the color. There's some swatches, and then there's an example of a sweater. I would separate this onto different pages. I would put the sketches on a page. I would put the materials on the page, and then maybe fill in some copy about the process, put them in an order that makes sense. Like, here were some knitting swatches that we started with, or the sketches, and then here's some knitting swatches that we were prototyping, and then here's our final hand knit sweater. I don't know if there's like restrictions on how many pages, maybe for certain applications that, maybe they're saying, oh, we only want to see 4 pages or something. I haven't really heard of that. But if you can expand on this and separate this into separate pages, and then maybe they included a close-up of one of these knits to talk about, you know, is it full fashion sweater? Are they sewn together, stitched together? And like, what's the branding? Can they knit in a logo or something? So that's something I would add and do on that. And yeah, this is great too. I would just want more details. I'd want to know, you know, I don't know. I think, I mean, this page I think is fine. I just want more, I think I just want more explanation, more detailed maybe. So if that's, yeah, I think that's the last page of that guy. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, I think we've got time for like maybe one more question. If anybody has something, we'll give it to the first one who kind of hops in either the chat or by voice.
Is it okay if I share my website through the chat? Is that, I can just type?
Absolutely, yeah. Even if you want to take us quickly to your homepage or something like that, just so people can know what they're looking for, would be great.
I would love that. Okay. Let me open this up. So this is Inside Fashion Design. Let me move that out of the way. So we do blog stories about the industry, but we also have.
Oh, sorry, Britta. Is this the homepage or? Oh, okay. This is the homepage, right?
Can you see
This slide that I'm seeing, the big IFD in baby blue.
Yep.
Okay, great.
That's the homepage. And so just a high level overview, you know, we do blog stories, which there's all these industry insights and inspirations. We have some great like interviews with industry folks. This is 6 years old, so the content goes back quite a ways. We started doing events and we hold Zoom sessions. So now every Thursday at 10 o'clock our time, Portland time. So 11, 1 for 10, 11, 12, 1 for you. We're interviewing either someone in the sustainable space, the ethical space, or an industry expert that's just sharing tips and tricks in their work history. So you can pop in here and find all kinds of stuff. And one thing I want to point out really quick, and then I know we're getting out of time, is we have our community platform, which is, gosh, it should be like right up here. Maybe I'll just, yeah, there's a way you can get to the membership, but in addition to this, there's a website specifically for the community, which is IFD Connect. And that's where it's like LinkedIn. You can create a profile, you can share your portfolio, your resume, you can direct message people. So that would be another, yeah, I don't know. I should know this. I'm on here every single day. But it's IFD Connect. Here, I'll put that's not correct. I'll put the, so for example, tomorrow, I'm typing it into the chat. Tomorrow we're meeting with a woman out of California, Grace Callis. She's been an independent sales rep for 30 plus years, and she is just a lovely super sales industry pro. So we're chatting with her about what it's like to be in sales, how to present your line to your clients. So we just have a really good time. It's very informal. We chat with her. People are welcome to chat and meet and greet and network at the same time. So you can check out those, and we have different topics and themes that we're discussing. So that's a fun thing to do. And then there's also resources on there as far as, you know, trends. We have templates for line plans, for croquis, for lots of stuff. So I encourage you to check that out as well.
All right, amazing. So first and foremost, thank you so much, Britta. Secondly, thank you so much to our participants. We will be sharing this webinar on our website. So if you wanted to go back and refer to anything that Britta said specifically, you'll be able to find it at nysd.edu. In addition, Britta mentioned that she'll be sharing that takeaway packet with me. So I'll be sharing that with all of you who are in attendance today. And again, thank you so much, Britta, for your time. And thank you so much, all of you, for attending.
Thank you. Thank you. And please feel free to reach out. You know, my email is on the website as well. And I'm always open to questions and helping any way I can. So I would love to connect. So thank you for having me. This was fun.
Amazing. All right. Have a great night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.